Not every hero wears a badge. Some have paws, a scarred past, and a heart that beats for the one they love most. If you believe in second chances, in silent bonds, in the kind of loyalty that can only come from a dog, like this video. Share it with someone who understands the power of animal love. Comment if a dog has ever changed your life, and subscribe for more real stories where courage walks on four legs. She never went anywhere without her red backpack, not even to the woods. 10-year-old Ava Monroe was the kind of girl who found wonder in everything. The way raindrops slid down the window, the way pine cones opened like secrets on the forest floor, the way her dog-eared notebook always seemed to know what she was feeling before she did. But on this particular afternoon, Ava wasn't sketching birds or writing poems. She was running. Branches whipped past her arms as she bolted through the trees, her red backpack bouncing with each stride. She didn't know what she was running from exactly, only that her mom's new boyfriend had started yelling again. And when he yelled, things broke. Sometimes furniture, sometimes rules, sometimes hearts. So Ava ran to the only place that felt safe, the woods behind their trailer park. She knew every path, every stump, every turn. But this time, she wasn't alone. A pair of eyes watched from the shadows, golden, still, unblinking. And behind those eyes, something waiting, something dangerous. Before he followed Ava into the woods, Ash had worn a badge. He was a German shepherd, trained to track missing persons, disarm suspects, and protect lives. Partnered with Officer Nolan Ray, Ash had once saved a toddler from drowning and even sniffed out explosives beneath a city council building. But everything changed the night they walked into an abandoned house on 11th Street. It was supposed to be routine. Instead, it was an ambush. Nolan took the bullet. Ash took the blame. He hadn't reached his partner in time, hadn't bitten the right man, hadn't saved the one person who meant the world to him. After that, Ash stopped responding to commands. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't bark. He just waited. Waited at the kennel gate. Waited for a shadow that would never return. Until the department retired him, dishonorably. That's when Ms. Calhoun, the old woman who volunteered at the shelter, stepped in. "You're not broken," she told him, brushing his scarred ear. "You're just grieving." And she was right. Ash wasn't dangerous. He was devastated. He didn't want a new mission. He just wanted silence. But fate had something else in mind. Because on that October afternoon, when Ash slipped out of the shelter's broken fence, he wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking for someone who felt as lost as he did. And he found her. Red backpack, tear-streaked cheeks, running into the woods with her heart in pieces. Lena didn't plan to run. She just couldn't stay. Not after the shouting, not after the slamming door, not after hearing her name tossed around like it meant nothing. She was 10, too old to cry at every fight, too young to know where to go. So, with her red backpack barely zipped and her heart pounding against her ribs, she ran. Through the cracked back gate, down the gravel path, and into the forest that wrapped around the edges of her neighborhood like a forgotten secret. The trees didn't yell, the leaves didn't lie, and the wind, it didn't care that Lena's world was unraveling. But neither did it protect her. She didn't know these woods, didn't see the broken branches, the uneven ground, or the sharp drop just beyond the ridge. All she knew was that something inside her chest was breaking, and the farther she ran, the quieter it felt, until she heard a sound that made her freeze. Not wind, not birds, but footsteps. Heavy, steady, coming closer. She spun around, heart thudding. And there, through the trees, stood a shadow, low to the ground, ears alert, eyes fixed on her like she was the most important thing in the world. A German shepherd. Lena stumbled back, eyes wide. She'd seen dogs before, but never one like this. He was massive, thick black and gray fur clinging to a lean frame, amber eyes that looked through her, not at her, and a worn leather collar, scuffed and faded, like it had survived 100 stories. But it wasn't just his size that made her hesitate. It was the stillness. He didn't bark, didn't growl, just stared, waiting. Lena's breath hitched. Her legs wanted to run again, just bolt deeper into the woods. But her feet wouldn't move. Because even though every part of her screamed stranger danger, there was something in his eyes, something sad, something tired, something that said, "I've been lost too." Still, she wasn't ready. Not to trust, not to feel. "I'm fine," she muttered, hugging her arms. But she wasn't. She was cold, alone, and the sun was starting to slip behind the trees. The dog didn't move, didn't press forward. He just lowered his head, subtle, respectful, and lay down. Right there, like a statue guarding a girl who didn't know she needed guarding. Lena looked at him, then at the woods behind her. She didn't speak, didn't thank him. She just turned and walked away. And when she glanced back, he was still watching, still waiting. For 3 days the dog followed her, not close enough to touch, never close enough to scare, but always there, like a shadow she couldn't shake. He never barked, never begged for food, just kept pace, watching, waiting. At night, Lena curled up in old barns or beneath pine trees. She tried to pretend she was brave, tried to believe she didn't need anyone. But the truth? The woods got darker after sunset. The cold sank deeper into her bones, and loneliness clung to her like wet clothes. That's when he would appear, never with a sound, just 2 glowing amber eyes in the dark. Then the soft rustle of fur on leaves as he curled a few feet away, back turned, body tense, ears alert. The first time, she tossed a stick at him. He didn't flinch, didn't leave. The second night, she whispered, "Go away." He didn't. The third night, she cried, curled into herself and cried like she hadn't since the accident. He came closer that time, still didn't touch her. But when she woke up, he was sleeping beside her, nose tucked under his paw, his back to hers like a silent vow. By the 4th morning, she didn't tell him to leave. By the 5th, she saved him a piece of bread. By the 6th, she gave him a name. Ranger. The moment she said it, his ears twitched. He looked up. Not just a stray anymore. Now he belonged to her. With each step deeper into the wilderness, Lena changed. She stopped flinching at every snapping twig. She stopped counting the days. She stopped looking back, because now she wasn't alone. Ranger walked beside her, always to her left, between her and whatever might come out of the trees, like he knew, like he chose that side for a reason. He scouted streams before she stepped in. He growled low when wild dogs circled near. He lay with his head on her lap when the nightmares came. And Lena? She stopped sleeping with shoes on. She stopped running. She started trusting. One day, she found a broken compass by an old fire pit. She didn't need it. "Wherever you go," she said, scratching behind Ranger's ear, "I'll follow you." They were feral things now, child and dog, but not lost. One morning, Ranger darted ahead, nose to the wind. He barked, once, loud, urgent. Lena sprinted after him, through thick brush, down a ravine, into silence. And there, beneath a rocky ledge, She saw it. A cave. A dark opening carved into the earth, hidden by vines. Ranger stood at its mouth, tail low, head high. Lena felt the tug again. Not fear, not danger. A pull, a purpose. Without a word, she stepped into the shadows, and Ranger followed. The cave wasn't empty. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air changed. Cool, damp, still. The light from outside faded into a soft blue gloom. Ranger's ears twitched. Lena held her breath. Scattered along the cave floor were items long abandoned. A rusted camping stove, shattered flares, a child's shoe. Lena's hand tightened around Ranger's fur. Then, a sound. Not loud, not human. A whimper. Ranger froze. From the far end of the cave came movement, shuffling, slow. Then, a girl, maybe younger than Lena, wrapped in a filthy blanket, eyes hollow. She stared like she hadn't seen another soul in weeks. Ranger stepped forward first, slow, tail low. The girl didn't flinch. She simply whispered, "He saved me." Behind her, another shape emerged. A dog, scarred, gray around the muzzle. A German shepherd like Ranger, but older, worn. He limped. One leg dragged, but his eyes, they told stories. Ranger stepped toward him. The two dogs touched noses, then stood shoulder to shoulder, like old friends, like warriors who didn't need words. Lena knelt beside the girl. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Maya," she croaked. "I was taken. He found me." Lena's mind raced. The rumors, the missing posters. This was her test. Not survival, not hiding, rescue. She pulled Maya close, wrapping her in Ranger's emergency blanket. They had to leave, now. But as they turned to go, voices echoed from above, shouting, footsteps, men. Not search parties, hunters, the kind that didn't want Maya found. Lena met Ranger's eyes. He growled, deep, protective. The older dog barked once, sharp, commanding, and just like that, the alliance was formed. Two girls, two dogs, and no way out but through. The cave wasn't just shelter anymore. It had become a trap. The voices grew louder, angry, purposeful. Boots scraped against stone as men descended. Lena counted at least 4, maybe 5. Not the kind that wore badges. These were the kind who hid in shadows, who dealt in secrets, who would rather Maya never be seen again. Lena crouched behind a jagged rock, clutching Maya close. Ranger pressed against her leg, his body tense and alert. The older shepherd, now clearly Maya's guardian, stood at the entrance to the inner chamber, shoulders squared. They had moments. Seconds. Lena scanned the cave walls, looking for light, cracks, anything. And then she saw it. A narrow tunnel behind a shelf of rocks, barely wide enough for a child and a dog. She whispered, "Ranger, lead." He moved instantly, silent and swift, nose down. Lena helped Maya to her feet, supporting her frail frame as they followed. The older dog brought up the rear, every few steps looking back, ears perked for danger. Behind them, flashlights swept across the walls. The men had entered. "There's fresh tracks. Dogs and kids?" "Check the back. They couldn't have gone far." Lena held her breath. Her heart pounded so loudly she was afraid it would echo off the stone. They squeezed into the tunnel. Lena had to crawl. Ranger led them like he had memorized every twist. Behind, the older dog began to pant. His limp worsened, but he didn't stop. Until a growl. Not from the dogs, from a man. A hand grabbed Lena's ankle and yanked. She screamed. Ranger turned so fast his body scraped the rock. He charged back, teeth bared. The man shouted, "Stupid mutt!" But he never finished the sentence. Ranger sank his teeth into the man's arm, forcing him to release Lena. In the scuffle, rocks above shifted. A loud crack, then collapse. Dust and stone sealed the narrow tunnel just enough to block pursuit. Darkness returned, but they were safe, for now. The tunnel emptied into a hollowed basin deep within the forest, where moonlight filtered weakly through a crack overhead. For a moment, the silence felt sacred. Lena collapsed against a stone, pulling Maya into her arms. The little girl's breathing was shallow, each gasp a battle. The older German shepherd lay nearby, his body trembling, his side marked with blood where a sharp rock had torn through fur and skin. Still, he watched Lena and Maya. He refused to close his eyes. Ranger paced the edge of the clearing, growling at every sound. His flank heaved from exhaustion, but his eyes were clear, focused. The mission wasn't over. Lena pulled off her jacket and wrapped it around Maya. "Hold on, sweetheart. Just a bit more," she whispered, brushing hair from her sunken cheeks. Her voice cracked. "Please don't leave me." That's when she heard it. Sirens. Far off, but real. Help. Ranger tilted his head and barked sharply. Then without hesitation he sprinted toward the sound, disappearing into the woods. The minutes that followed felt like a lifetime. Maya coughed, wet and weak. The older dog let out a soft whine, then gently placed his head on her lap. Lena closed her eyes and rested her forehead against Maya's. "You're going to be okay," she said, even though her heart didn't believe it. But then, lights, voices. Ranger returned, not alone. A search and rescue officer came crashing through the underbrush, flashlight beam wild. "We found them!" he yelled. "Get the medic!" The chaos blurred, hands lifting Maya, oxygen masks, radio chatter. But through it all, Ranger stayed close. And the older dog, injured and silent, was carried with care, his head never turning from the girl he'd guarded like family. Lena sobbed, not from fear anymore, but from something deeper, relief, gratitude, hope. The hospital room was small but warm. Sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains, casting a soft glow over the bed where Maya lay, her cheeks less pale now, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Lena sat by her side, her hand wrapped gently around the child's. She hadn't let go once since the rescue. Ranger lay curled beneath the bed, ears flicking occasionally at the sound of footsteps in the hallway. His fur was matted, his body weary, but his gaze never left the girl above him. In the next room, the older dog was recovering too. A veterinarian had tended to his wounds, marveling at the old shepherd's endurance. No one knew where he'd come from, or how long he'd been alone, but one thing was clear. He had protected Maya as if she were his own. News of the rescue spread quickly. Headlines read, "2 hero dogs save missing girl in forest ordeal." But for Lena, the real story wasn't in the papers. It was in the way Maya opened her eyes each morning and whispered, "Ranger?" It was in the way Ranger licked her hand softly in response, and it was in the gentle whine the old dog made when she smiled at him, an unspoken bond that said, "You saved me too." The hospital staff arranged for both dogs to stay nearby. Maya's recovery was slow but steady. Every day she grew a little stronger, and every day she asked to walk, just a few steps, so she could visit her guardian dogs. "I want to be a vet," she said one morning, her voice barely above a whisper. Lena laughed through her tears. "You'd be amazing at it." Ranger thumped his tail once. The old dog blinked slowly, resting his head on Maya's lap. They were safe. They were together, and for the first time in a long time, there was peace. Weeks passed. Maya no longer needed help to walk across the hospital floor. Her steps were slow, careful, but they were hers. She was going home. Lena stood beside her as she packed her small bag. Folded inside were drawings of Ranger and the old shepherd, thank you cards from nurses, and a tiny plush toy that looked just like her hero dog. "What if they forget me?" Maya asked as she zipped the bag shut, her eyes shining with quiet fear. "They won't," Lena said, "because they'll be with you." And they were. Ranger's adoption had been finalized, officially registered under Lena's name, but emotionally, he belonged to Maya. As for the old shepherd, a surprise waited at the exit doors. A retired canine officer, having read about the rescue, had come forward. He recognized the dog immediately. "His name's Ash," he said, voice cracking. "He disappeared 3 years ago during a flood evacuation. I thought he was gone forever." Ash trotted over and leaned into the man's legs, tail swishing gently. The reunion was quiet, but deeply emotional. 2 heroes, 2 second chances. That evening, Maya walked out of the hospital holding Ranger's leash, while Ash followed alongside his old partner. Cameras flashed, reporters called out questions, but Maya wasn't interested in fame. She looked up at Lena. "Can we go to the park?" They did. The sun was setting. The world smelled of grass and pavement and spring. Maya ran. She laughed. Ranger barked, chasing after her. Ash stood back, watching it all. Then slowly, he lay down in the grass, his eyes fixed on the little girl who reminded him what it meant to matter again.